And I have to understand that at the very moment, when I develop feelings for someone, or when I really like someone, when I desire someone a lot, when I start thinking a lot about someone, in some way it's as if on a plane that is not visible, on a physical plane, on an energetic plane, I am giving that person power over me. It is like that, and moreover, the person is truly aware of it. And when someone has a lot of power over us, sometimes intentionally and other times completely unconsciously, they test that power. Honestly, I see it constantly. That is, the person is trying. And those tests are hard to overcome, especially if we have an anxious attachment style, which, from what I have observed nowadays in romantic relationships, I would say that the anxious attachment style is even more prevalent, also due to this sense of immediacy that we have developed. In today's society, I believe that when it comes to romantic relationships, the problem of instability that is occurring, the problem of this immediacy, means that there are more people, truly, who, when it comes to having any kind of sentimental relationships, suffer much more from anxious attachment than secure attachment. It's more complicated than ever, isn't it? So of course the other person is testing us and we can't help but fall. Therefore, I urge you to understand that there is one thing that is essential, that you learn in love, and that completely changes your dynamics. You have to learn not to react, truly. You have to learn not to react. And many times we confuse not reacting with a whole series of other things. We confuse not reacting with not seeking temporarily. We confuse not reacting with showing ourselves as hurt, offended, sad, right? But even a negative reaction is still a reaction. That is to say, it doesn't matter if you show this person that they have power over you, because when they give you something positive, you're there. Or when they test you to see if you're there, you show them that you are there. Or if when they do something negative, you can't help but show them that it hurts you, that it matters to you. Everything, in the end, is a way in which this person is reinforced in their idea that they have power over you. And humans, in general, do not react well to having power. Having power does not suit us well. I believe that if something brings out the less pleasant side, the less human side, the less empathetic side, it's precisely when you feel you have an advantage over the other. This is a bit, I think the sense is somewhat in biology, isn't it? We are programmed to take advantage of weakness, aren't we? It's the survival instinct. Who am I going to eat if I'm hungry? Well, I'm going for the young, for the sick animal, for the weakest. It's like we have to learn to seize the opportunity. Even in the realm of love, without realizing it, it seems that small remnants of that instinctive programming remain. And when we realize that a person is dying for us, adores us without having to make any effort, this person sees all that potential in us just because, and we realize that everything affects them, that they are attentive, that we live in their head, often that's where it comes from. And I see it when I analyze the cases and I say, my goodness, how people love to be always checking, and they don't realize that it's really also a way of seeking approval. Those constant checks to see if that power is there, if they have it over you, right? Well, precisely because that's the case, and because people, when they have power, often do it, we are not capable of not reacting truly. What I'm saying, which at first seems simple, is extremely complicated, because that emotional connection leads us to always want to prove ourselves. We want to show positivity. We want to show love. We love to demonstrate our affection. We love to seize the slightest opportunity. But we also often have that emotional need to show this person that it hurts us, that it harms us, somewhat trying to appeal to that empathy, to that pity, hoping they react, reconsider, right? But what we never feel inclined to do is to say, wow, I'm not going to react. I am going to give you absolute and total indifference. And to be able to do this, the first thing is to learn to identify when that person is conducting their checks. As I say, sometimes they do it unconsciously. I don't want to attribute premeditation here because it's not always present. But that person, without realizing it, since they know they have that effect every so often, wants to make sure this person is there, right? That's why they are very likely to, for example, if you say, oh, I'm not well, I'm going to step away for a few days to see what happens. They will do some checking because they want to know, they want to be certain that you are there and that they have an effect on you. What happens? We, as we tend to be when we are in that position where we have given the power to the other. Let's say our self-esteem is not doing so well, right? So it's very difficult for us to identify what this person is doing. A pot check, right? That is when they throw us a bone, we are not aware, we don't see clearly, oh, they said this to me, which is positive. And instead of being aware that they are throwing me a bone so that I do the trick, so that I jump, and knowing it's here, right? At that moment, we cling to an almost blind hope, believing that this bone actually means that things are changing, that maybe their feelings are changing, that there's a chance that from now on everything will be different, that this person does want to get involved, that we are on the same level, we get excited. So we do the trick just as the person expects, and then we get hit with disappointment. Why? Because we haven't been able to identify that it was a bone. Just like if the person tests us in a negative way, either by being absent or being more distant, or saying something that provokes in us, that triggers an emotional reaction, right? Instead of realizing, they are testing me, I have here the detonation within me. We truly believe that it's our problem, that it's an issue with our emotional management, right? We explode inside and we explode outwardly, right? Then we show them again that indeed, if they make a comment, even as a joke to provoke jealousy, it does provoke it. That if they tell me something, they know will keep me on edge. It indeed keeps me on edge. That if they tell me something halfway, they know I won't be able to avoid having to ask more, wanting to find out more because I have no peace. That I'm sometimes also attentive to the conversation in which it becomes evident that I've been attentive, either due to my memory capacity or because I've been keeping an eye on their social media, as if that's truly the case. Then we have to understand that this person does it, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously. But if we start to analyze those big emotional fluctuations we have, beyond just because things aren't as we want them to be, it's often because of this. Because the person is testing us in both positive and negative ways. And we have to learn to identify it. The best way, the thermometer is me. That is to say, something this person says or does causes an emotional outburst within me, as I say. I feel bad and that discomfort inside me screams. You have to do something. Because I also know that when I take some kind of action at that moment, it gives me instant relief, right? Because it's like I react to my discomfort, so I do validate myself. But that instant relief is usually very short-lived. Why? Because in the end, indeed. But there is a part within me, sometimes also unconscious, that realizes I'm being a bit of a puppet for this person. That is to say, they did something, and I couldn't help but fall completely. So the next time you have that outburst, that volcano inside you, I want you to relax. That you learn, beyond this context, that in this life you should never react, decide, or act. When I am emotionally overwhelmed, unless we are in a situation of imminent danger and you have to save your life, then yes. That's what this mechanism is designed for. This mechanism, this impulsivity, that action, that immediacy in acting is simply because it triggers your alarm system, and then you act like that. But this mental system is not designed for these situations. It is designed for, I smell fire danger, my life is ruined. So I react quickly. What do? I call the firefighters, I run out, I grab something. So that you react like this. The problem is that when this person does something that leads you to feel bad, your need to solve it quickly is also triggered. your immediate reaction, and we don't make intelligent reactions. So even if your brain tells you, act, I feel bad, even if it also tells you, I don't care anymore, because anger clouds the feeling. You've probably found yourself in that situation before, saying, someone I care about a lot, does something that makes me very angry. And at that moment, I am capable of saying, well, you know what? I'm going to send them a message and tell them to go to hell, because I don't care. And at that moment, when you write it, indeed, you don't care about that person, because the anger is covering up the feeling. But the thing is, anger doesn't last. Emotions are transient. And that's precisely why when you feel emotionally overwhelmed, you shouldn't act, because you're not going to do it more intelligently. Nor will you feel the same afterward. That is to say, the relief you will experience is a relief that will last as long as the emotional outburst lasts. A little while. And then you'll regret it. Either because you feel like you're the one who closed the door. I've had people cry to me with genuine desperation, sobbing uncontrollably for having to add to a situation in which the other person was constantly testing their limits, constantly checking how involved they were. Moreover, in one of these tests, they had exploded. They had sent everything away. And then, truly, they felt like they were the ones who burned the bridges, who ruined everything. Why? Why can't I manage myself better? No, it's that person who has caused this in you, and you haven't burned any bridges. That was really worth it at this moment, but the guilt is there, isn't it? They end up taking the feeling with them. So, to recap, point number 1, recognize that this person, whether in a positive way, which is even harder for us here, okay? Or in a negative way, is testing us. I will give a practical example, for instance, of the positive so we can see it better. This was a client of mine who really, well, this is a more peculiar case because I think she was already dealing with a profile with a disorder, okay? But well, this type of profiles have certain patterns. They have very specific dynamics. And they also fall into this. That's how it is. What happens is that we are looking to consolidate a relationship here. But well, let's say an example of a breadcrumb was that he had that mechanism very well checked off. I distance myself, I become absent, especially at times when you are going to believe that I might be with someone else. That is, it's not the same if I don't hear from you for 5 hours on a Tuesday afternoon or a Monday morning when I know you're working, as it is if I don't hear anything from you on Saturday from noon until a certain date, until a certain evening. So this type of profile, when I started to analyze, often engaged in that dynamic of I leave at specific moment, or I become absent at times when I know that will lead you to feel terrible. And there are times when I will indeed leave you. Let's say, feeling bad for days, and I will return with a gentle arrival that won't clear anything up for you. But there are times when I like to make fireworks. At a moment when I sense you must be at home feeling terribly anxious, climbing the walls, I send you a message at an unexpected hour also. Very emotional, very beautiful, very much like, well, a specific case. The case we acted on was that indeed. Since Saturday morning, there had been no news from the terrible, horrible such. This time it was different, because this time I was there. And then he sent her around. I don't remember the exact time, but it was already late. A message from the guy offering her a sense of security she didn't expect, explaining a bit about what he was doing, that he had gone with some relatives to have a drink. On top of that, like, I'm not on a date. I'm not with another woman. I'm just here, not with someone else, that he was at a place and such, and that he wished she were there, because he would love to be sharing this moment with her. And of course, a message like this, one of those that when she was feeling anxious, if she receives this, it triggers a rush of hormones, substances, you know. It leaves her flying. to another hemisphere. What happens? Her reactions to a message of this kind were usually, I reply, with a message 3 times as emotional. From thanking you, how you're making me feel, to what this means to me, to what I would do if I were there, to how I would like you to be here. I praise you, you know. Her response was usually proportional, like, if you've given me sugar, I'm going to give you 3 mountains of tons. I told her, okay, let's wait a bit and we'll reply. With a couple of laughing emojis, she told me. But how am I going to reply with that? I said, of course you have to laugh, because what this person is doing to you is like they're managing when you can be happy and when you have to feel bad. It's like your dealer, your drug supplier. I said, let's not continue with this then. As I say, a non-reaction does not mean, because I want to clarify this, that it's like I'm not replying to you. Not at all. That's zero contact. A non-reaction in this case, when we know someone is constantly checking, is not giving them that emotional response they expect, right? So it's like, in this case, oh, you're telling me this and that. Normally, I would have responded with laughing emojis. In this case, it was because he was the most despicable, and I truly felt like saying, I'm actually laughing at what you're telling me, really. I'm not even going to reply to you, but in a normal situation, well, I might not have done something so radical. It would have been enough to say, oh, well, have a great time. That's it. I don't make a big fuss. I mean, I don't play the trick. You've thrown the cookie at me, but I'm not going to do somersaults. I'm not going to let you see that you've had an impressive effect on me. And the same goes for the negative. That is, if you are aware that you've inflated this person quite a bit, and we are usually aware, I have to really try to stay on a steady path for a while. That is, I'm not going to praise you, nor will I keep emphasizing how well you do something. I'm not going to show much interest. Where is the interest? Well, in questions. It seemed like I even had it in a meeting. No. I'm neither going to get angry, nor am I going to complain. That is, I have to try to be emotionally very flat, a very flat emotionality, very linear, without peaks, even if I feel them, because I will continue to feel them, but I have to fake it. I have to be hermetic. And not reacting to someone who is aware, who has been aware of the power, who has played at testing the power. It's not like something has broken. I had a remote control. And suddenly I give the remote control and it doesn't work, right? And I don't understand why it doesn't work, and I want to, right? And we usually notice that the intensity of the test increases, right? Both for better and for worse, right? And suddenly it's as if the power is changing hands, right? Because that frustration of the other person, that trying and not being able to, gives us power, right? It's realizing that the other person, no matter what they do, we don't react. This confuses them greatly, and they can't stop overthinking it, right? Because they don't understand it. It's like, but what's happening? But why is this person suddenly, if I had all the power, what gives them that strength? What makes it so that no longer? Could it really be that they don't care? Could it be that they've stopped feeling? Could it be that there's someone else? Could it be that something in me isn't so favorable? They start to question themselves. They doubt, right? They doubt. And of course, the change is very radical, because from having someone inflating my ego to suddenly having them put me on a strict diet, right? It leads me to doubt a lot about my concept, the situation, whether I know you, whether I've gauged this correctly, right? Whether you really were the type of person I thought you were and whom I was underestimating, right? And we start to be much in the mind of someone who merely thought of us occasionally, before checking or before having fun at our expense, before using us perhaps out of on the boredom to boost their self-esteem, to know that we are there, right? Suddenly, the mental space we begin to occupy in this person's mind is quite larger. And this works even with people who don't feel, which is the curious thing about this, right? This mechanism works like this because, for example, a no contact rule, I always warn, a no contact rule is when we say, look, I choose myself. I choose honesty in my emotions, with myself, with what I want, and I put you to the test. A no contact rule will either help me get over someone who has no feelings for me, or make a person who does have feelings and doesn't realize it in time reconsider, value me, and seek me out. So a no contact rule is an all or nothing, and it's what I truly recommend in situations where we are very emotionally involved or where we truly see potential. If I see potential, why would I play games? But if I've already fallen into playing games with someone with whom I don't really see much potential, or with whom I'm not that involved, but I'm very hooked. This person has me very hooked. Indeed, they have all the power. This is very effective because it works even if there isn't a feeling. No contact doesn't. Someone who doesn't have that feeling. Time will pass and they won't look for you. And I always say it. But here, even someone who doesn't have feelings, let's say all that they've given while playing with you turns against them. And it works just the same. Well, I hope this video helps you, that it aids you in detaching yourself as well, that you also learn to know yourself better, to master yourself better, to understand that you are not a slave to your impulses or your reactions, that you need to have emotional control. Because emotional control is one of the tools that will allow you to trust yourself, to respect yourself, and to have confidence in your ability to manage things. So acquiring emotional control is always a good thing. If you liked it and you're not subscribed, I invite you to do so, to click the bell, because I would love for us to see each other again very soon. And until then, as always, I send you a big kiss.